Welcome to our Climate Action Week 2025 High Schools pre-recorded lesson. This is an interactive lesson, so please pause the recording for discussion when a question is posed. To get started, let's have a quick explanation of what Climate Action Week is. The point of Climate Action Week is for us to work together to take action to reduce the impacts of climate change. We want to live in a world that we can all enjoy and that is well looked after for future generations. Climate Action Week is part of the Scottish Government's Climate Week. We want you to be part of our whole country working together to reduce the impacts of climate change. Through this lesson and the activities you'll take part in after, we're going to learn about how we found out about climate change, what is happening now with climate change, and what we need to do next to move towards a more sustainable future. So we're going to start a time machine and we want to travel back into the past. So your first question is, how many years do you think we need to go back to meet the person who realised that the temperature of our planet is affected by our atmosphere? Pause the recording now to have a discussion. So the answer is 201 years. So let's make that trip now. So we've gone 201 years into the past and we're going to meet Joseph Fourier. Joseph was a French mathematician and physicist, and in 1824 he worked out that the Earth should be a lot colder than it is due to its distance from the Sun. And he wasn't really sure at the time why that was, but he knew it wasn't quite right. Do any of you know why the Earth isn't really cold? And I can give you a hint for this one. There's something in our atmosphere acting like a blanket that prevents the Earth from being really cold. Pause the recording now to have a think about why the Earth isn't as cold as it should be because of the distance from the Sun. So the answer is greenhouse gases. So greenhouse gases in our atmosphere act like a blanket, trapping in heat and keeping our Earth at a stable temperature that can support life. So for our next discovery, we're going to travel another 30 years into the future. Now we're going to meet Eunice Newton Foote. Eunice was an American scientist and a women's rights campaigner. And in 1856, she worked out that greenhouse gases in our atmosphere keep our planet warm. Eunice was an amazing woman, and she was also involved in the campaigning for the right of women to vote, and she was the first American woman to publish scientific papers on physics. So she worked out that these greenhouse gases were keeping our planet warm like a blanket. But can you name any greenhouse gases? Pause the recording now to see how many you can name. So the key greenhouse gases that you need to try and remember are carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. And they are the key ones that are keeping our planet at a stable temperature. And around the time that Eunice Newton Foote was alive, coincidentally, was also the time of the Industrial Revolution. So whilst we were discovering all these important things about our climate and our atmosphere, we also started burning lots of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. Do any of you know what the link is between burning fossil fuels and greenhouse gases? Pause the video now to have a discussion. So when we burn fossil fuels, we release vast amounts of carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, as we've already said, that traps heat in our atmosphere. So during the Industrial Revolution, we started releasing lots and lots of greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. All that carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases from burning fossil fuels and other human activities has started to lead to our planet to warm and our climate to change. But we didn't know about that in the 1800s. It would take over 100 years for us to fully confirm the link between burning fossil fuels and climate change. So let's have a look at a bit of a timeline to see when we realised that human activity was causing our climate to change. So from the time of Eunice Newton Foote in 1856, who discovered that greenhouse effect, there was another 100 years of lots of work understanding the science of the greenhouse effect. And then in the 1950s, scientists started gathering evidence that our climate was changing due to the greenhouse gases we were releasing into the atmosphere. But it took more than 30 years for governments to start to pay attention. And eventually, in 1988, the US government were officially informed that human activity was causing the planet to warm and our climate to change. The first conference of the parties on climate change, so that's the coming together of countries across the world to work on climate change, took place a few years later in Berlin in 1995. So a lot of your parents were probably born around the 70s, 80s and 90s, and so it's taken your parents' lifetime to get to where we are now, which is 2025, when the 30th Conference of the Parties on Climate Change, COP30, will be held in Brazil. So over all that time since Eunice Newton Foote discovered the greenhouse effect, let's see what's been happening to the temperature of our planet. So this is a heat map showing the average temperature each year for the past 174 years. The scale goes from dark blue, representing colder years, to dark red, representing hotter years. What can you see happening to the temperature of our planet? Pause the video and have a discussion about what this graph shows. So what we can see is that the temperature of our planet is changing from the 1900s being around the coldest up until recent decades being the hottest. Things are getting warmer and we will need to get ready for the changes we are already seeing, as well as trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to reduce the impact of what's to come. So in your next activities, you will look at how we have been trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions over the past 35 years and what we need to do to reduce them further. You will also look at the benefits of solving climate change and how you can get involved in climate action.